I was in fight or flight for about 10 months. Hello everyone, it is official. I am starting a YouTube channel. Somewhere a 12-year-old version of me is ecstatic and is like, why didn't you do this sooner? If you've never seen my face before, my name is Meg Deem Easton. I'm at Meg Deem on all social medias. And if you think I look a little bit familiar, you might have seen some of my videos on TikTok where I've been able to build a small community of people and supporters throughout the years. Obviously with the potential of a TikTok ban, there's been a lot of creators who are trying to find new spaces to share their information. And I do really think that YouTube is something that I've always wanted to do but never felt like it was the right time. Having the experience on TikTok has taught me that there is no such thing as a right time to start posting. Everyone has to start somewhere, and so here I am. Right now I'm gonna try to just stick to the basics of YouTube and getting comfortable with the platform, but I didn't wanna just create a video and blabber. I wanted to actually make sure that my first video was of substance. So if you do follow me on TikTok or if you've seen my videos before, you know that I got married in November of 2024, last November. And a lot of my videos go viral because they're striking up controversy. For instance, I did my own makeup for my wedding, which was a viral video. And I often talk about the cost of weddings, which I think is a really interesting thing to people. I find that the wedding industry is not super transparent. It seems to be one thing while it is another. Hopping right into it, today we're going to be talking about what I wish I knew before wedding planning. Our wedding was beautiful, I don't regret a thing, but for most people, when you're planning a wedding, you're planning it for the first time. A lot of brides are pretty young as well. Let's start with the basics. I really knew myself, really knew that I would not enjoy planning a wedding. Although I know it was something I could do, I really didn't want to. So my husband and I discussed it, and he didn't think it was necessarily worth the money. He figured we would have a lot of outside help as well as help from him. We made the decision to not go with a wedding planner, and boy, did I regret that. If you have gut feelings about your wedding and you think that you're one of those people who would hate planning, there's a lot of people out there who think they would enjoy it. That's something I knew I would never enjoy. Any scenario where I am trying to please a bunch of people at once, I basically shut down and freak out. So I was in fight or flight for about 10 months. I do want to say this just in case people don't make it through the whole video. There are 2 hacks that I did use and did know about that I think absolutely changed the game for us. The first one was getting a wedding email. It's just creating a new email to send all of your information to regarding the wedding. So anytime I needed to look anything up, I could go to our wedding email. It was all sorted into folders and I could pull receipts, conversations, contracts, anything related to the wedding was all right there. You don't know how much that's going to benefit you until it does benefit you. So I highly recommend doing that. It's also amazing if you do it on something like Google so that your fiance or honestly anybody who's helping you could log in and see all that information as well. The other hack that I'm so glad that we did, we both got Chase Sapphire Preferred cards, which are travel credit cards. Because we did that, even only with about 10 months of planning, we were able to almost fully cover our honeymoon and flights, everything included for a honeymoon. When we got the credit cards, there was like a bonus. If you spent a certain amount of money, you got bonus points. So I purchased my card, paid $95 a year for the card. I got that and I used it for all of our wedding purchases and then just paid them off as we were paying for them. And then I referred my husband, he got approved. So I got the referral points and then he did the same thing I did. So we basically maxed out our possible points. Did an all-inclusive resort in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic for 6 nights. Our flights were fully covered and we only had to pay about $1,000 for our stay because the points covered everything else. So segueing from the credit card hacks, we're gonna start with the first thing I wish I knew more about when I was planning my wedding. Weddings are expensive, especially if you are a 2025 or beyond bride. Inflation is obviously up in all areas of life and weddings are one of them. I think since 2020, everything kind of crashed. And so everything was able to be marked up way higher when it all came back. And you can see this. Now, location is a huge factor. So if you live in areas like Utah or maybe smaller towns, this might not be as much of a problem for you, but we live kind of near Nashville. Every single venue or wedding related purchase here was so expensive. We discussed eloping or having a micro wedding, and it was just really important to both of us that we had all our friends and family supporting us on our wedding day. So although it would have saved us money, we ended up just doing a traditional wedding anyways. I think online it says the traditional weddings range from $5,000 to $35,000. I thought we were on track under budget for about $25,000, but by the end of everything, we ended up spending about $40,000. This is obviously super dependent on a lot of things. It's dependent on your area and on your resources. There are a lot of people who have family members who work in catering or family members who own venues and things like that. Those can all save you a lot of money, but if you don't have any of those resources, you should expect to spend quite a bit of money. I've had 3 friends that got married within 2 years of me, and their weddings cost $60,000, $30,000, and around $25,000. So I think all the wedding websites need to be updating what the actual average is. Keep in mind, these costs are not anything special. This is not all the bells and whistles. This is not crazy florals. This is a minimal traditional wedding where you have a venue, dinner, drinks, a good amount of guests, DJ, dancing, and a venue booked for, 5 to 6 hours. Another thing I wish I would have known is wedding planning is a full-time job. I was basically working a 9 to 5 and then a 5 to 9 every single night. The only thing I could do, it was like I had homework again and I was in school, was work on planning this wedding. And that's really difficult to do, especially when many vendors end up closing by 5. There were many times on my lunch break at work that I was making calls, scheduling things, having consultations. It was so exhausting. I actually think hiring a wedding planner could be beneficial for 2 reasons. It could save you money in the long run because they might know extra hacks. It will also just save you so much mental load. And again, all of this might have felt like so much more work to me because it was something that I really didn't enjoy doing. I was super excited for the wedding, but just picking every single little choice was so exhausting to me. If I could go back, I do think that I would have hired a wedding planner. I would have tried to specifically find one that worked with the venue that I was going through, because I think that was a big hack as well. For the same reasons, I actually really think that all-inclusives are a really good idea. I remember we stumbled across an all-inclusive venue that we absolutely loved, but it was like $25,000 and we were like, there's no way we're spending that much money on this wedding. Cut to 10 months later, coming in at $40,000. We definitely would have saved if we went all-inclusive. I think 10 to 15 years ago, if you booked everything individually, you were saving a lot of money. But since word has got out about that, I actually think that venues are trying their best to provide as much as possible, so you'll just purchase all of it from them. They would rather get $25,000 from you and have you do everything with them than have you spend more money elsewhere. The venue that I chose had a lot of stuff included, but that just gave me a taste of how much better it would have been if my venue was completely all-inclusive. And that's actually coming from somebody who is kind of a control freak. I like to have my hands in all of the pots, but one of my friends had an all-inclusive wedding and I watched how she was able to just sit back and relax and get to pick what she wanted and not worry about the rest, and that is priceless. The next thing I didn't realize before wedding planning was how hard it is to prioritize yourself and your wants as a couple. Obviously, the more people you have, the more people you want to please. And I know that this isn't true for everyone. I know a lot of people say, do what you want, it's your wedding day. But for my husband and I, part of our wedding day being successful was knowing that everyone had a really great time and it was worth traveling to be a part of. One thing that we did was not having kids at our wedding. That was an extremely difficult rule to enforce, mainly because everyone wanted to be the exception and because everyone was taking it more personally than it needed to be. We had a guest capacity at our venue, so not having kids helped us immensely with our guest count, and we were able to invite some of our friends that otherwise probably wouldn't have been able to come. But it's really, really hard just telling people no and remembering that it should be something that you want, because again, part of the success of your wedding is feeling like people had a really great time. You don't want to make people miserable, but you also want to make sure you're not miserable, and that is a really difficult balance to achieve. I said a lot during planning that I never knew I was a people pleaser until I started planning a wedding. I always thought that I did whatever I wanted. I didn't care what other people thought. That is not the truth. And my maid of honor / sister can tell you that too. Kind of going off of that, the next point is everything about your wedding can be controversial. Think about how unique one person and their preferences are. Think about another person and how unique their preferences are. Now combine those two extremely unique people and blend them together, and now you have a third extremely unique set of preferences. So many times I got wedding advice and all these things that people would say about what a wedding should or shouldn't be. And they're all different because everything about a wedding, it's very individual to the couple. There can be a lot of negative energy surrounding your wedding and the choices you're making, because no matter what people say, they have a hard time remembering that the day is not about them. And last but not least, I think this is the most important point. The last thing that I wish I knew before starting planning my wedding: you will love your wedding no matter what. It's a special day, it's beautiful, and the day means so much more than the little details or somebody getting upset about something or not everybody liking your dress. So many people who gave me advice about the weddings, but the one thing I heard them all say is that their wedding was beautiful and they loved it. But the main thing I gathered from that was that no matter what, your wedding is going to be special to you, and it's going to be more special to you than it's going to be to anybody else. And that is all that matters. I'm so happy you're here. I'm so excited to be starting this YouTube channel and posting my first video. If you haven't already, catch up with me on TikTok and Instagram. I also have a wedding template offered on my Etsy shop, which I'll link below, that has a wedding budget template and features literally every cost that I ran into so that you can avoid being shocked by any hidden costs or things you wouldn't expect to pay for. I know it would have been super beneficial to me. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to see more, and thank you for watching.